to arrange them, and to be able to pass on that knowledge to, I don't know, a member of a family, or to pass it down to a friend, or even to the next employee. It takes time, you know. It is, I don't know if it's whether fortunate or unfortunate to say the time factor, to talk about the time factor. But as I said, since we are time oriented, it cannot be avoided, you know. And so therefore that is there. And so therefore it takes time to have a wholesome idea about anything, to have a wholesome idea about anything.
那么呢，其实呢，如果说今天呢有一个呢非常重要的这个呢指导要来呢教导我们的话呢，那么让我们呢可以变得呢更加的聪慧。那么就好比呢是一个呢这个菜单，这个菜单呢是要时间的，好像呢比如说我们呢就是说来安排呢，就是呢排列这个花朵一样，那么呢就以呢这个。诚信呢，就是来做这样的这个排列，而把我们的这个知识啊传达下去。无论呢是传达给我们的亲友，或者呢是传达我们的这个时间呢，都是要有时间性的。所以呢，可以说呢是信或者呢是不幸的呢，都是呢有关系到这个时间的这个因素。所以呢，主要呢，我们呢可以说呢，还是以这个呢时间为主的。因此呢，是需要呢一些时间来做一些呢有意义的一切事情。
So, having said that, to cover a little ground or small ground, if there is interest, well, probably if is not the right way to start, when maybe is a better word, I don't know. Genuine interest comes into being, then time is not a factor. It's something that comes into being, such a thing comes into being for us when we have this physical condition, when almost without having to be taught, one could say, when we have probably from something very mild, if we have if we have something like an apprenticeship, or to get a little bit more intimate, maybe the art of parenting. And then there is a far more volatile aspect where we develop a sort of the idea or the sense of friendship, you know. Regardless of any of those, whether we consider, no matter whether we consider them one is better than the other, through those, then we are able to develop some form of genuine interest.
也就是说呢，我们呢会就是会讲述到呢有关于一些呢基础上呢就是有兴趣的这个东西。当我们呢如果是有兴趣的东西的时候呢，无论是什么时候会比较适合，或者呢是这个就时间不是呢这个问题的。因为呢，如果在有利的这个条件之下，比如说呢，我们从很小处来说，就是去得到呢比较可以说呢是亲密的对父母的这种教育，然后呢来发展出我们的这个友情。那么至于上述所说的呢，无论我们认为呢哪一个是更好的话呢，主要呢就是我们的真正的这个兴趣。那么尤其呢是以我们的这个众生来讲，我们是有这个色身方面的，所以呢我们来讲的话呢，就是纯粹就是以自己的认为更好的这种兴趣。
兴趣 is interest. Okay.
兴趣 interest。
Where the heart goes, or something like that. 兴趣 as in where the heart goes, or
你的随着你的兴趣，
yes. So yes, interest. We have in English far more. I don't know if it's a biblical term, such as devotion, whereas in Tibetan we say Möpa, Gupa, and then if we elevate it, then we say Tepa. All in all, regardless of the formality, I suppose it's somewhere along the line of interest.
那么呢，兴趣呢这个名词也可以说呢是诚心。那么呢，在藏文里面呢，他们也有讲到古巴，然后呢姆巴这些呢，其实呢无论怎样的一个形式，它呢可以说呢就是呢属于的这个兴趣这个范围里面。
So, this, as long as this interest is there, then time is not necessarily a factor. We simply bypass time. Yeah. The time feels, the idea of time feels short when we have this interest. It simply bypasses everything. When this interest is not there, then even even 5 seconds feels like a lifetime.
Yeah. 那么呢，也就是呢，只要呢对这件事情有兴趣的话呢，那么时间呢并不是一个因素，它是超越了这个时间的。但是如果呢没有这个兴趣的话呢，可以说几秒钟、几分钟就好像是一辈子。
So, then having said that part, then of course the title of this evening's talk is about something to do with modernism, how to implement Buddhism, or what the historical Buddha have conveyed, how to implement them, how to allow that to complement our current time.
那么今天的题目呢，是和这个现今的社会有关，就是呢，如何把这个佛呢所教导的和如何呢去应用，能够呢在我们的这个现代的社会里面呢，一起的能够呢平行的应用。
And the Shakyamuni Buddha have conveyed counters of knowledge, information, or methods, practices in so many forms. And so therefore, of course, if it'll be almost impossible to say what is appropriate for us.
那么呢，释迦牟尼佛他教导了无量的有关于的这个知识，还有呢，传达了很多的心绪，这个方法以很多的方面，所以呢，我们呢很难，就是是不可能来说呢哪一个呢是适合我们的。
The other evening, when the subject was about mind training, Lojong, it was a great access point to allow us to enter into that, what is known as the path or practice. And so, probably for this evening, in order to cover the ground of how to work with our current era or our current modern contemporary situation, probably that is still very valid.
那么呢，昨天呢，前天呢所讲到的这个修心如中呢，其实呢，它就是给予呢我们呢一个非常好的一个呢就是道路，让我们呢来做这个修持的。所以呢，基本上呢，就是能够呢让我们可以呢应用在现今，就是呢这个现今现代的这种社会里面呢是可以生存的这些教法。
So, during the talk, then we raised several questions. We raised several doubts, of course, and during the time of that talk, there were certain, I think, aspects where I wasn't really able to answer properly from my feeling, where I think I was a little bit too anxious in a way to deliver, but since we've had that session where we established a few, grounds, maybe tonight we'll be able to explore a little bit deeper.
那么呢，在这个前天所的这个开示里面呢，就是有让大家呢提问了一些呢问题，来呢解答大家的这个疑问，以这样的这个方式。那么呢，其实呢，法王本身呢是想要呢讲述的、传达的这个更多。那么呢，可能呢在今晚我们呢可以呢探讨更多有关于这个教法。
So, yes. So now, how do we make it? How do we go deeper? That's the question. It's like peeling an onion, where we think that the next layer may be it, but most likely it's just another layer that we come into, right after peeling.
那么呢，这问题是呢，我们如何呢更的深入的来探讨这个问题呢？看起来呢是很简单，其实呢它是有很多层次的。
And and probably that analogy might suggest something that although it is perfectly okay to correct, to peel, when there is the interest to somehow understand what may be underneath the next layer, to have meaning something, to have a very simple interest, but nevertheless, in order that we are not disappointed by the next layer, if we take the care, once again, if we take the time, how we are peeling it, are we peeling it out of sheer anxiety? Are we peeling it out of sheer excitement? What kind of mental attitude is taking place? Probably that would help in order to somehow not to be disappointed when we come to the last layer, in a way.
那么呢，就是说呢，就是虽然刚才呢有讲述到的，就是有关于兴趣这方面，就是呢，其实呢，在这个呢覆盖在下面底层的，可能呢就是属于呢这个兴趣。那么如果呢我们呢去分析、去拨开这个底层的意识，也就是说呢，它是兴趣的这个所在。那么为了呢不有这个失望，所以呢我们呢用这个时间一层一层的来拨开我们的这种焦虑，还有呢让我们呢就是焦虑，还有我们的这种可以讲说兴奋的这种心念然后呢就会到了最后，就算呢是最后一天了，我们呢也不会呢有那种失望的接受产生。
In order to complete this analogy, obviously, at the end, we come across that point where there is no layer or such. And that feeling is probably comparable to the idea of feeling that I need to, well, the game is sort of over, and so therefore we simply restart again. And so the only thing that is there left to do is to probably replant the onion, so that we can start it once again, restart it once again.
那么呢，就是呢，就当我们呢可以讲说完成了，或者呢是拨断了这个最后的这个一层，那么呢，我们呢会有这种呢感受。那么呢，这种感受可能我们会觉得哦，游戏已经终止了。那么可能呢，我们呢还是希望呢，它能够呢再重复的能够呢再开启。
So, well, having said that, then maybe we could continue from some of the questions that we didn't cover last time.
We have 25 questions from last time. We covered 3. Before you arrived, we received another 32 questions.
Okay.
So I think if we were to cover all, I think we will take the whole night.
Okay.
But let's start with an interesting question from Ronjong practice. There's a question here that says that, Your Holiness, can you please share from your personal experience and teachings and application of Longjong in the death of a loved one? How do you handle the death of a loved one using Longjong method?
Maybe if you could translate that question into Mandarin.
Mandarin?
Yes.
She? Me? I'm a bit surprised. Okay, but anyway, 法王是说，这个问题是如果怎么样又运用这个 Rojo 的方法来 来对一个死去你的亲人用这种办法来解决这个问题。
It's I never knew, of course, the experience of having someone that you know in general, and then in particularly someone you know very well, and then on top of it, someone who had an immense impact on your life in terms of your growth and so on. When that physical aspect, when it dissolves, when it disappears, what kind of impact it has on one's own being. It all, I think, the very first one was that of the passing of my middle brother. I think, yeah, I had. Well, English is very strange for me still, because it's all based on tense, meaning present tense, future tense, past tense, the whole language. And so, yes, so in this case, I had a middle brother, and he passed away when he was very small, probably when he was 6 months old. Probably that was my first impression of having someone close to me pass away.
嗯，就是呢，知道呢自己认识的人，尤其呢是和自己呢相当熟的人，那么呢，当他们的色身融化，也就是他们死亡的时候的所受的这种影响。那么法王说呢，以他来讲呢，他就是有这样的一个经历，就是呢，他有一位呢小弟弟，那么这位小弟呢，就是在很小的时候呢，就已经呢，可以说呢是往生了。那么也可以说当时呢，影响是如果以呢现在世、未来世或者呢是过去世的呢这种来讲的话呢，就是他的这位小弟和他呢是非常亲密的，那么呢在年纪很小的时候呢就往生了。
And I don't exactly know the age gap I had between him and me. But my youngest brother, between my present, see, this is the thing with English. My youngest brother and between my youngest brother and the late one, there was not much gap. Probably, well, the minimum 1 year, I suppose. And so, since that was the case, and now what is the age gap between my youngest brother and me? I'm still calculating. So we probably didn't have much gap. And this is not a showcase of how good a memory I have, because it clearly suggests that I don't. But one of the memories that I have is my mother carrying both my younger brothers in her arms, left and right, in the, what do you call it, blankets. And so anything to do with symmetrical things, I always had a very strong interest from a young age. And so therefore, when she was carrying both of them in her arms, it looked very nice because she had one in each arm, symmetrical, at the center it was her. So yeah, those are the memories I had. And then all of a sudden, realized that. Yeah.
那么呢，当时呢，这个房间里面呢、就是非常的严肃，又非常的这个伤感。然后呢，他就问他的这叔叔，到底呢是发生了什么事情？那么他的叔叔很好，就是呢也很简单的，就是呢讲述说。就是说你的弟弟呢已经呢死了，往生了，就是呢这样的简单的来呢跟他讲。
So that direct approach was, I would say, very helpful in many ways, even though it created a lot of questions in my mind, of course, because now what does that mean? And I had asked him, I remember asked, still to this day, I still remember very vividly asking him, like any child would, what does it mean? All those about why, when, where. And so he said, well, death or passing simply means that the one is no more. And then I think probably I didn't say why, because that may, or that could have made him very awkward. But nevertheless, when I said where, or something along that line, then he said, because in his answer was saying, what does it mean? He said, it means that a person goes away. I said, where? And he said, well, it's like a person goes away far into the distance. Then the notion that I have always is that, yes, it's logical that someone can go into the distance, but then eventually they will return. So I said, so okay, but when will he return? He said, well, in this case, it's going away into the horizon or distance, but then not coming back. That's what it means.
那么呢，其实他对这个叔叔呢是非常感恩的，因为呢，他当时呢，在他的小小的脑海里面呢，就是呢，也有很多的这个问题想要呢问清楚。就是呢，他会觉得是这个呢，到底呢是什么意思呢？就是呢，他死亡了，那么为什么会这样？那么呢，哪里什么几时？那么呢，这叔叔呢就跟他说，其实呢，死亡就是没有了。那么没有呢，那么呢，他就因为他也没有问他为什么，因为呢，他心里面呢觉得有一点怪别扭。那么呢，但是他记得是他有问他是哪里什么地方，那么他就告诉他说，他去了一个很远的一个地方。那么呢，以后会回来，就是说呢，他会回来到这边。然后呢，如果说他以后会回来，他几时会回来啊？然后呢，他的这个叔叔就跟他讲说，他去了很远的一个地方，或许呢是没有回到这个地方了。
Because obviously, when you are that small, you are constantly observing. So therefore, you can see your parents and people that you recognize becoming bigger, 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 and then going further, further away, and then simply turning into a dot and disappearing. But eventually, somehow, one way or the other, they would come back, And so you are constantly sort of conditioned to think that that's the pattern. And so therefore, when you're introduced into a unique pattern, that it just goes further, further away, and it's just that blur line that you see and no more. It was very interesting. Yes. Well, not at the time, but now it's interesting. Yes.
那么呢，就好像说你认识的人，父母或者呢是你认识的这个人，他就是呢从大很大，我们看了跟我们的面对面是很大，然后呢慢慢的距离他走远了，小了，直到呢不见了。那么呢，就是有一天，但是我脑海里面就想，有一天呢，他还是会回来的，像这样的一个模式。就是说呢，虽然他就是走远了，很远了，很小，没有了，但是呢，之后呢，他还是会倒回来的，这样的一个想法，这样的一个模式。
Yeah, I think these are things that we don't either remember or we have somehow neglected in some ways, because each of us, no matter how old we are physically, actually those memories are there, actually. And it's very, very interesting to remember those early memories. Because simply because of what you're used to, I think, what you think is it, and so therefore something going into the distance and then that reappearing again.
那么呢，这是可以讲说呢，是非常的一个有趣的一个，就是说呢，我们的这个记忆力。所以说呢，无论呢，我们呢，到这个多老的话，那么呢，这个记忆力呢，都是还会出现和重现的。就是有些事情呢，可能我们不记得了，会忽视了，但是呢，它的记忆呢，还是存在的。那么这是一个呢有趣的一个就是可以呢记得它。
Yes. The very same, well, not to say the same, but very similar patterns actually do repeat day after day. It's just that by now we don't pay attention to them. And like right now, the mother took the baby and walked away for our sake, of course. And rather than having a long distance, she appeared behind the doors. And such sort of similar patterns does occur actually day in, day out. Just that we ignore them by now. Yeah. We have become either a professional or we have just simply become accustomed to ignore them. And therefore it's just completely irrelevant. Yeah.
那么呢，其实呢，很多这个时候呢，都是有这种呢，同样的这个模式，在我们的这个日常的生活里面呢的每一天都会有的，只是呢，我们没有去注意它。比如呢，法王说刚才一个例子，妈妈和她的这个小孩，他们呢走出去，那么呢走出去呢在一段的这个距离，他们呢我们看不到他们，就是呢他们见不到他们消失了，他们呢在这个门的这个后面，所以呢同样的这个呢很多时候我们呢其实在这个日常生活里面呢都有这样的情景，但是呢我们呢常常就是呢忽略了它，所以呢我们呢就是惯性的就是呢忽略我们生活中的所发生的这个一切，而把它呢当成是毫无关系的。
So, well, without going too far away from the question, now, of course, when I was small at that time, when my middle brother passed away, that experience, as I explained, was there. But of course, at that time, I was so small that I had no real time to develop a relationship with my late brother so as to miss him and to develop some sort of emotional yearning and such.
那么呢，当然的，就是呢，当时候，比如说，法王跟他的这个弟弟，那么呢，他的弟弟那时候他很小，他呢，当然和他的弟弟呢，还没有呢，就是呢，产生起太大的那种亲密的这个关系，所以对他来讲呢，或许呢，他可以讲说是没有太大的那种感受。
Then, of course, after that, as time goes by, then you come across more and more, of course, where you come across the passing of a dear friend or someone you know, someone who may be related to you, and so on. And now in the recent years, particularly in the recent months, then yes, many great friends, or one could say spiritual friends, have dissolved or passed away.
那么呢，当然呢，时间就是呢，后来呢也这个推移，那么呢就越来有越多这样的这个遇到这样的情况，比如呢自己的朋友或自己所认识的，或者呢和自己有关联的人，那么呢就死亡往生了。那么在近近年或者呢近期这个月，那么呢就有这个呢。很的这个导师，就是呢，这个善知识，他们呢，融入这个色身，融入法界，又是呢，圆寂往生。
And so accordingly, all kinds of emotions rise. And in our own way, of course, because we are all unique in our own way, and so therefore we have our own way of dealing with that disappearance. And I think in my life, if Buddha Dharma wasn't there, I think my take on each of those experiences would be very, very different.
那么呢，就是呢，我们的这个呢情绪这个情感呢产生，所以呢，我们呢就会有自己呢自身的这个方式，就是呢来处理它。那么法王说呢，在他的生命当中，如果没有佛法的话呢，那么他所经历的呢，或者呢是他所感受呢，将会呢有很大的不同。
Because of the Buddha Dharma and its influence in my life, I'm able to react to each of those moments in a way that is different from, as I said, how I would react if I did not have any Buddhist influences. Because
那么呢，在这个佛法还有呢这个影响着他的这个生命，所以呢，他在这些时刻呢所做出来的这个应对的这个时刻，都是呢以这个其这个如有佛法应对的，就会不一样了。
First and foremost, that comes into being, having been introduced and having been influenced by Buddha Dharma, are naturally, of course, that pattern of from the horizon coming back, yes? So, in the form, in a more theoretical or conceptual form, such as rebirth.
那么呢，就是有这个佛法的这个介绍，还有呢这个引导。那么呢，这种可以说刚才所讲到的这种的模式，就是呢大小，然后呢不见掉，这样呢就是有一种呢这个佛法的这个方式，影响着这个水平的这个地平线。
To simplify it, while that is a very, I don't know if to say very, or although that may be a comforting notion, comforting idea, then having further Buddhist perspective on life, then it has helped me to understand that that's not it also, you know. It's not just limited to that concept of rebirth.
那么呢，就是因为呢有这个佛法这样的这个方面，所以呢，简而言之呢，就是以慰藉的这种呢概念来讲安慰的这个想法来讲的话。
Although that simplicity has its own quality, but nevertheless, if you simply say, that's it. Someone goes away and someone comes back, and if you just say, that's that, then in a tone, in a manner that where we almost sort of in a dismissive tone, then yes, probably one has to say that no, there is something more than that.
当然它是有它的这个本身的这个呢品质呢所在的，但是呢简单而且呢有这个共同之处呢或许我们说它就是去了然后又回来，就是呢这样子的一个呢做法。
And so therefore now in my case, I've had the fortune, I have the fortune to be able to have quite a comprehensive perspective, let's say. Although I'm not a professional, nevertheless, at least I have glimpses of the whole spectrum, let's say.
所以呢，就是法王说呢，虽然他并不是说呢非常的这个圆满，但是呢对这一方面，但是呢其实呢是非常他有一个非常全面的一个了解，就是呢可以说呢是整个全面的这个概念。
I'm not, by saying that, I'm not saying I'm omniscient, all-knowing, all that, okay? And therefore in English, I at least I try my best to cover that ground by saying I know but I don't know.
当然法王说呢，他不是全智的或者全知知道一切的，所以呢他可以说是我知道，但是我也不知道。
So so yes, so maybe we can go backwards to that simplicity. And so the idea of rebirth, one could say, as simple as that. Yes, from that, in that context, then meaning if we don't regard rebirth or causality in a dismissive way, or in a hurried, as if we are too busy. This is just nuisance, this idea of rebirth is just it's a bothersome thing. It's a nuisance. So I just want to just sort of say, okay, and let's move on to something more important. That's what I mean by in a dismissive way. Then it is interesting, and we can explore a lot from there.
那刚才也有讲到这个呢，转世可以呢说是一种呢回归来的。刚才呢有讲到这个，那么呢并不是说有时呢我们呢在做一些呢事情的时候，尤其是很忙的时候，比如说就会有一些敷衍，就是说好的好的，可以的就是有其他重要的事情在做，这个呢是非常有趣的一个呢可以探讨的。
So if we are not hurried, I will please mark that point so that I can come back there, because globally and particularly here in this nation, city, state nation, yes, everything is the whole life evolves around time, first of all. Then meaning it's not a negative opinion or demeaning thing to say, but nevertheless, however, I shouldn't say but, I should say however. However, since the whole culture is sort of more and more focused on time sensitivity, the idea of taking time, making time, and giving care to time is or may be a challenge, and so therefore now focusing on such a topic like that of, in this case, the experience of having someone pass away, and particularly someone we know, compels or demands or it requires that much of care, actually. Yeah, not that we have to go against our culture or mentality, but nevertheless, at least we have to know that, at least we have to be aware that it requires time.
什么？这边好吧。那么呢，就是在我们呢这种全球化的这个生活里面呢，可以说呢，这时间，所以呢，讲说一切呢都是时间的，无论呢如何，我们呢都是比较注重于这种呢时间。所以呢，今天呢，我们呢所讲到的这个呢题目就是呢这个死亡，就是呢进入这个人已经呢一些我们认识的人，他们呢已经死亡的，所以呢这些呢就是有时候呢，无论呢是在我们的这个属于的精神方面的这些呢认知，我们呢都必须呢要有一定的这个了解。
So, was that clear? Somewhat, yes, because I did jumble up a bit. So, in short, what I was trying to say was that even if you don't have time, it is good to make time.
就算我们没有时间，那么呢，我们去制造时间那也是很好的。
赚钱是很有用，可是赚时间是更有用。
对。
So it means basically sort of investing from oneself, I think, rather than from the external factors.
我们呢，基本上呢，就是从我们自身而定，而不是呢去看这个呢外在的因素。
So yes. Every day, if you look at the chart on the internet, which I became accustomed to during COVID, which which may have become a practice during COVID for all of us, Diamond Princess ship was one of the main things. There was a cruise, if you remember, yes, and there was some, and then I think everybody was focusing on that. How are they managing? Beside, of course, trying to manage exactly where we were staying, in which nation, but that cruise was sort of like a benchmark. So likewise, from now I forgot the website, since now COVID has become a dream, long distance dream. Nevertheless, they had all kinds of charts about on a daily basis how many people are passing away, and well, basically death rate, birth rate.
那么呢，在我们的这个每一天里面呢，其实呢，我们都非常的这个，尤其是现在我们呢有讲述到这个新冠病，那么呢，就每个人呢其实都非常的注重于这个网络，那么呢被这个网络所吸引了，然后呢在这个里面呢它是也有呢讲述到就是多少的这个人已经死了在这个新冠病里面，在这个或者多少人存活，在这个呢网络里面呢都会有呢这样的。
So, according to that, oh yes, one of the site was John Hopkins something website, where it showed a great many detailed charts about who's being infected and so who's recovered and so on. So anyway, the point is that each death, maybe we can consider them as going into the distance, and each birth the opposite, coming from the distance or horizon towards us. And through that simplified perspective, well, if we don't really focus too much on exactly who's coming back, we can probably say they came back. Yeah.
那么呢，当然有一些网络里面呢，他们呢，就是呢也有记载着就是生多少人生多少人呢死亡，多少人呢出事等等，也有这样的。当然，如果呢我们呢以这样的记载来看的话呢，就是如果呢是死亡的话，就是他们已经呢就是离开了，去了一个呢很长的这个距离。那么如果呢是有生命的新的这个生命，当然呢就是相反的倒反的。如果以这样的这个部分来看的话，就是他们呢已经呢又回归到我们的这个世间。所以呢以这样的来讲呢，就是可以讲说呢简易的来讲，就是他们回来了，已经呢回归了。
But of course, when each of us have our own unique way of distinguishing who is who, then obviously after a certain distance, then we begin to see the style of the walking style, and so on, the size, the shape, the height, and so on. Then we can distinguish further and further that if this is someone I know or I don't know. Yes.
那么呢，如果呢，我们想要知道呢，这个他是谁来呢做这样的分析或者是分别的话，比如从一个很远的一个这个距离来讲来慢慢的看他的这个行走的这个行走的的方式，还有呢它的高，还有呢它的这个形状体型，然后呢从而呢慢慢的去了解，然后去看这个人呢是我们认识还是不认识的。
So having said those things, I don't know what kind of emotion that is coursing through each of you when I say those things. But what I'm trying to refer to is that, yes, personal experience of mine in that regard, yes, it is devastating, you know. It's that same experience all over again, that someone goes away and they don't come back. But with the help or with the assistance of Buddha Dharma, then I can have a great range of understanding that, first of all, it is just normal that the physical aspect does disappear simply because it appeared in the first place.
那么呢，就是说呢，这些影响着我们的这个情绪，其实呢是非常个人的一种经历。以我们的这个佛法呢来讲的话呢，就是它有助于我们呢知道，虽然呢明白，让我们明白，虽然呢这个色身是没有了。它是不见了，其实没有消失不见了，其实它是建立在它曾经出现过。
And then somehow it's not necessary to say, okay, the so-called mind or consciousness, or in English term soul, is somewhere out there, and so on and so forth, you know. And so therefore it's never really gone, it's somewhere there. I think those are probably more of an emotional language. Whereas from a Buddhist perspective, yes, there a clear distinction between mind and matter, or the consciousness and the physical aspect is made, because otherwise we will not be able to have a proper conversation, of course. But nevertheless, it yes, first of all that.
那么呢，当然我们呢，就是不能够呢说，这是可以的，它是呢有这个心，还有呢这个心事或者是说有在这个地方某一个地方有这个灵魂的这种呢存在，或者是在某一个地方曾经呢有这样的这种呢事或者心事的这种存在。那么呢，这些呢，其实呢都是以这种呢语言的这个来讲的，用了这种呢普通的这个语言来讲述的。那么以我们的这个佛教徒的这个观点那么呢心和这个物质，当然了，它这个方面呢是有所不同的。那么如果呢我们呢没有这样的一个方面的这个了解的话呢，那么或许呢今天的这个对谈呢就不能够成立了。
From a Buddhist perspective, the mind and matter, or consciousness and the material and so on, is seen as interdependent.
那么呢，在我们的佛法里面呢，心和这个呢物质，或者呢是可以讲说呢，这个物质和我们的这个心事是互相有关联的。
Or at least explained as interdependent. Explained. I said initially is seen as interdependent, you know, those two. Or one could say it's explained, conveyed as interdependent.
那么呢，这个可以讲说是互相有这个关联，就是呢，可以讲说是缘起的一种因缘。
Meaning that none of the two, or either of the two, rules the other, you know, governs the other. neither of them are the boss. No 老板。
没有老板没有。
Yeah. You know, mind and matter. It's not that one is superior than the other.
就是说呢，没有一个呢是两者，他们两者是互相的这个呢互相的这个可以说是依靠成立的，没有一个比另外一个更殊胜。
It's like saying it's there, there, there. Yes. In order to be able to say it's there, we need to have something that is not there. You know?
比如说我们呢，就是说在那儿那儿那儿，当我们要讲在那儿那儿的时候呢，一定是要有建立在一个不在那的一地方的一个场所。
So there is this, of course, classical debate about who's the boss. Yes, the brain or the stomach. Yes.
那么呢，我们就是讲说，谁是这个老板呢？是我们的心，还是呢我们的这个肚子这边？
So it's mutual, you know, it's interdependent.
是呢，互相就是呢依靠彼此而建立起来的。
So if you didn't have this complication, Buddha could have just simply talked about the body and not about the consciousness, you know.
那么呢，如果只是说呢，以这个没有不是缘起的话呢，佛陀或许他会专注讲关于色身，而没有呢会去讲述到有关于心事。
But it's inevitable that as long as we develop a habit of thinking that there is a body, you know, then naturally the idea of the opposite comes into being. It's inevitable.
那无可避免的，因为呢，我们的业习就是呢，非常的就是认定为有一个呢这个色身。
So in that context, yes, the physical aspect can and does, or one could say will dissolve.
当然，这个物质色身呢，它呢最终呢是或者它的这个可以讲说这个部分呢是会融入的。
And because of it, if you feel certain emotions, you know, to miss that aspect, you know, the aspect that we are used to, should they dissolve? If you feel sad, if you feel like mourning, it's absolutely correct or absolutely okay to allow that.
那么呢，这个身体会呢消失。那么呢，以我们的这个情绪方面来讲我们呢已经呢习惯于呢，当看到这样的一个色身消逝的话，我们呢会感到呢就是伤心，感到呢就是悲伤。那么呢，这是对的，这是呢可以的，它并没有错的。
But at the same time, how to say, should we turn that into a rigid culture or a religion? And I don't know, turn it into, well, what I mean by that is that to say forcefully we have to mourn, we have to miss, if that comes into being, is that necessary? Obviously, we all know in this room that that's not necessary.
那么呢，其实呢，我们呢也可以呢把它呢转换成好像是我们呢这宗教有关于呢我们的这个宗教这个文化的，因为呢它这个心呢是悲伤，是出自我们自己的内心的一种认知。
It could be a very dear friend or a family member that seemed like very close to oneself, and having gone through the experience of that person being passed, having passed away. If there is no emotion, for example, is that wrong? No, it's not wrong. Yes.
那么当然，当我们呢要好亲密的朋友，或者呢跟我们呢很靠近的人，那么呢当我们呢经历失去他们呢往生的时候呢，那么我们呢内心里面呢有这种情绪，感到呢这种悲伤，那么呢他并不是他并没有错的。
Either it means that we are mourning probably in our own way, or the other is that we didn't know that person actually. We didn't really know that person intimately as we thought.
我们呢有时呢也是，就算呢我们呢不认识那个人呢，我们呢有时也会用自己的一种呢方式来呢就是处理这种呢悲伤的情绪。
In short, there is nothing. There is no reason to feel embarrassed or be shameful by that fact.
也就是呢，简短的来讲呢，我们呢不应当呢，就是感到呢这个尴尬，或者呢是感到呢这是一种罪过的事情。
Yeah. So, having said that, yes, personally, the very dear individuals in my life, as time goes by, they seem to disappear more and more.
也就是呢，简单的说，在我们的这个生命里面呢，这个亲密重要的亲友去世的这个时候呢，我们呢也可以说呢是会越来就是呢越加的这种呢感伤的越多。
And particularly the individuals that I know or from my own level, who I feel are extremely beneficial for others, when they begin to disappear, it is a source of great sorrow.
那么呢，当然那个我所知道的这人呢他呢我知道他可以利益很多的人，那么呢，他就是呢消失不见了，往生了，那么呢就会更加的这种呢悲伤。
And just like everyone else, even I go through that feeling that if only they could remain a little bit longer or further, if they could come back.
那么呢，我就是呢在内心里面呢想，如果呢他能够呢长住久一点，或者他能够活久一点，或者呢他可以呢再回来。
But the very teachings that I have received from my dear teachers who have, well, in this case, passed away, the precious teachings that they have left me with was to say that although it's normal to mourn, normal to feel the sorrow, nevertheless, how to say, don't expect them for them to come back in the way that we are used to.
那么呢，这给予我这珍贵的教法的这个导师，那么呢已往生了，那么呢就是在心里面呢感受到这个呢悲伤，也是呢会就是呢期望，就是说呢我们习惯于就是呢期望他能够呢再倒回来，再回来。
And because we are so used to, or I was so used to thinking of my teachers, my friends in a way that I was used to.
那么呢，我很习惯于就是呢，想着我的导师或者呢是我的朋友，我所习惯他们的那个样子。
It is as if they had such wisdom, those who passed away, that once they knew that I knew them, they knew that their existence was, or at least their appearance or manifestation was no longer useful. Yes, it's yes. The point, yes. The point is that, we all, our parents or teachers, let's say, or our disciplinary masters, yes. Initially, they seem to invent all kinds of methods for our sake, for our improvement, yes. They already know more or less that at some point we will overcome their methods. Because we are intelligent, of course. We are not stupid, yes. And so therefore, accordingly, they will constantly shift and change their advices, their methods, their teachings, yes. But once we mature enough to be able to know exactly when the discipline is going to come, we already develop or deploy all kinds of tactics to evade them. We know we have invented all kinds of loopholes. That's when they know that they are kind of mature enough, and so therefore they have to change their tactic, and the disappearance is probably one of them.
也就是呢说呢，比如我们呢所认识的我们的我们好像我们的父母或者呢是我们的老师，他们呢有这个呢方法教导我们，让我们呢去进步。那么当我们呢就是越来呢长得越成熟的这个时候呢，这个心意我们的导师让我们去进步的时候呢，我们呢就会去发掘各种的方法，就是他们已知的这些呢，我们呢会去超越，因为呢我们像很聪明更聪明这样的能够呢超越这些，然后呢就会找一些呢loophole，就是呢那个一些漏洞。漏洞就是呢他们呢我们呢就会出现了一些漏洞，然后呢他们呢就会改变这个政策，然后他们呢就消失了。
Was it clear? I hope so. Because the meaning is something like, to repeat again, because I'm not so satisfied. Not because of the translation, but because I think my English was not so good. Because I every now and then use a term called nature's mercy, which it's maybe is too strange, but nevertheless, um, there is this beauty, there's this constant and all-prevailing beauty, which maybe we can call it Dharmakaya, I don't know, but I don't like to use the Dhammakaya to somehow prove my strange words, because I don't think I'm teaching Dharma, I'm just speaking my mind. So, therefore, nature's mercy is one of my own. And so, therefore, if our parents were bodhisattvas, then we can very clearly say that they teach us what they know, they guide us accordingly. And when they know that we have more or less developed enough skills or treachery, then they know that that particular course is complete. And so therefore they move on to the next step, yes, which is either by stepping back or they disappear, And we can, as I said, we can clearly state this if our parents were bodhisattvas. If they are not, still this takes place, Let's say our parents are ordinary beings and they still do the same. And I will call that still a beautiful thing, because they still do the same. Either they get sick or uh, or some other reason, emotional reason, social reason, whatnot, and so on. They take backward steps more and more, and eventually they disappear until we have become the parents or we have become the teacher or something.
如果说呢，我们的父母是菩萨的话呢，他们呢就是教导我们，还有呢引导我们，就是他们呢所知的，这个所知道的这个一切来呢让我们呢能够就是呢升起这各种扩展起我们的这种呢可以讲说呢是各种的这个技能，所以当我们达到一段的这个时间，我们呢已经呢扩展起了我们的这种技能，也可以说呢，我们的这个课程已经完成了。当这样的一个课程已经完成的话呢，那么他们呢要进入的另外一个步骤呢，就是消失，就是呢在我们的生命当中消失，也可以呢说是往生了。那么无论我们的父母是菩萨，或者呢是他们是凡夫，但是呢，其实他们也是一个呢非常的这个美好的这个呢，可以讲说呢是一个呢众生，可以说是呢一个美好的人，因为呢他们在这个世间里面。是通过了可以呢种种的这个磨练，然后呢成为了这个父母，成为了这个父母之后呢，他们呢就把他们所知的这个所有的一切都可以说呢是教导给我们。
Well, in that regards, or having said all that for the last an hour or so, just for one question. A long ride. Yes. What was the question actually?
The actual question is, how do you use Longjong to handle the death of the loved one? Your own personal experience.
Yes. Well, I think I kind of explained, yes. And so in order to answer that, I will go a little bit forward with what I said just recently. So, yes. So in this case, you can see the difference between a bodhisattva and like ourselves. Yes, that the course of so-called nature is like that. It has no favoritism, no ism at all. Yes, at the end, and eventually it not really force, but the circumstances naturally sort of nudge us, let's say, to, well, not really to say grow, but to be aware. Yes. And so the difference between us and the bodhisattva is that they are able to, they first of all know that fact, and secondly, they flow with that. Yes. And so therefore, it's not a lack of compassion from their side. When they disappear, they just know that there is no other way other than taking, well, still the English idiom is not correct, but sort of taking a back step and letting us come in the front and take the front stage and then gain experience.
那么呢，讲到了这个菩萨戒，那我们自身，那么呢，其实呢，在我们的这种呢，最后当我们呢成长的这个时候啊，我们呢就必须呢要有这个正知。那么当我们呢和这个菩萨相比的话，那么菩萨呢他们是两知这个实相的。而且呢，他们是顺着这个呢实相来走。当他们的消失不见了，并不是说他们呢缺乏那个呢慈悲那个悲心，而是他们知道没有呢其他更好的方法让他们退下一步，而让我们呢能够呢就是把我们呢推向这个前面来呢面对这个呢因为呢，就是他们呢退一步，让我们呢有机会能够呢来获取这个经验的。
So probably in the midst of all that, you can find some answers.
对的，所以大家呢就从中能够呢知道那个答案。
Time's up. No, no, I thought that was the message. I thought.
You want to take the next question?
Yes, I think we have 18 minutes. Yes.
But this time I'll choose an easier question, okay? So that I can, in case I get to translate it again. How can Buddhism remain relevant in the new world with AI, with current news of Nepal, people actually standing up against corruption and everything? So Actually, personally, in some of the studies, especially during COVID,
Yes.
and during war, people give up on religion. So, how can Buddhism be still relevant?
Yeah.
在新时代里面，佛法是否可以变得更对人类有用？比如现在的 AI，年轻人的暴乱，COVID 发生，战争来了，很多人都失去信仰，很多人都失去宗教的需求。那么佛教怎么样才能变成越来越有用呢？
I think probably it's impossible to put into one word into what is what we are all going through in our current era, because there are simply too many things, of course. Social unrest, natural disasters. Probably we can just summarize into those two if you really try hard. And so therefore, does Buddhism have, or not does Buddhism, but how can Buddhism, I don't know, give some support, yes, in this sort of, I don't know, very violent current? The answer is quite vague to begin with, because Buddhism wasn't really designed in the first place to solve any problems, actually. It's something that came into being with each, I don't know, with each experience. Yeah. Meaning, yeah, further, yes, further. Meaning Buddhism wasn't a tool to sort of solve to solve problems in the first place. It wasn't designed in that way. If you look at, for example, the Vinaya aspect of the Tripitaka, or I mean of the practice of Buddhism, each of those sets of disciplines sort of came into being according to the circumstances. Buddha never said in the first place, these are it, and you must follow these. Actually, in the very first place, there was nothing. There was no discipline to speak of. So, likewise, in the manner of the types of meditation methods and so on, Buddha never said in the very first place, these are things you must do now, from here onwards, or so on. And with each arising circumstances, then something came into being.
Mm. 可能呢，就是在这一个字里面呢，就是我们所遭受的这种呢天灾和人祸，佛教徒呢如何在这种情况下，就是佛教能够如何在这种情况之下呢支持着我们。那么呢，这其实呢也是相当模糊的 一件呢这个事情。那么佛教呢，其实它讲述的不是呢解决这个问题而来的。比如呢，在这个三藏这个佛教的这个教法里面呢，佛从不说呢，我们必须要这样的去遵循这一个去做。或者一开始的时候呢，他并没有讲述到呢有关于戒律的，也没有说我们呢必须要这样做，或者呢是那样做。因此呢，它是依这个情况而来呢决定一切的。
And this particular part that I've said so far is coming from. It's not something I've invented or something, but I think it's coming from the fact that mm, uh, Buddhism doesn't really have a particular identity. Um, it's sort of, it's like a wanderer, you know, and it accords with at a vast plane. And then accordingly, it sort of complements that environment. Yes. So in this case of modernism, yes, I cannot really say how it will evolve. Actually, yeah. Yes, it is true. I did bypass that part where we normally say, "Oh, Buddhism is not a religion, or not exactly a religion, not exactly a philosophy." Now we have been saying that for some time, so therefore I thought no point to repeat that anymore. That's why I'm saying it in this way.
那么呢，其实呢，佛教并不是呢一种呢被发明出来的这个东西，它是呢一个可以讲说是一个真实实际的这个真实实际的一个真相。那么佛教呢，其实它没有呢一个呢非常硬性这个规定的一个呢这个教律，可以说呢，我们好比呢可以讲说是好像呢一个流浪者。那么这个流浪者他所走过的每一个道路的这个足迹，可以说呢是走过这个大山，绕过这个大海，或者呢走过这个大平原。那么他就是呢能够呢非常就是可以适应融入的适应整个的这个大环境。所以呢，如果来讲说，我们说这个佛教如何呢和现代来呢有这个关系那是一个很难能够呢讲述出来的。他呢很多人每次都是说呢，这个佛教其实它不属于一个宗教，它也不是属于一个哲理。那么呢，这呢已经呢讲述了有很多篇了，所以呢法王呢也不在此重复的讲述。
So yes, social unrest of various kinds that's taking place around the world, war, disease, of course, which we felt very recently, and then now, yes, the artificial intelligence. Sometimes I think we make things larger than life. I think, and because we cannot measure, we can measure a change, and so therefore, if there is something alarming, I think, or when something alarming takes place, Buddhism really doesn't have to come into the rescue like a hero, I think, yeah. the fact is, I think each and every one of us are intelligible enough to know, okay, what is the consequence of a certain, I don't know, either natural disaster or social unrest is due to a lack of moderation or something, you know. And so we all know it, yeah. And that that knowing quality, that knowing ability, if you just don't name it and just leave it as it is, probably it's all right. Yeah. But then socially, of course, when we think that when that quality that when that presence of that equality is very apparent, it's only natural and once again inevitable for us as society to name that, you know, as if it's a thing. And so likewise we have named those qualities in various ways, either as philosophies or religions or such and such.
那么呢，在我们的这个不同的这个事件，在这个世界发生了很多的这种事件，比如呢这个战争，还有呢这个疾病，还有呢当然就是 AI 的这种出现。有时候呢，我们呢就是把这个事情把它呢就是可以说呢就是放大了也就是说呢，我们呢没有呢真正的去用了这个就是major change
Natural disaster.
自然的这个灾难的这个出现。自然的这个灾难的这个出现，我们呢，佛教来讲呢，我们不需要去做一个呢，好像是救世的这个英雄这样。那么呢，如果我们呢知道自己的这种能力，我们呢正知道所有的这一切，那么呢所有的这个我们呢所知道的这些自己的这种能力呢，还有呢这个可以讲说是社会方面的这种呢认知和这个认同的这种呢来呢处理这整个的这个状况。
So, if you view it that way, we can kind of see the birth of Buddhism, you know, because when such wisdom or intelligence comes into being, we cannot help ourselves but to name that, yeah, to label that. I think of course it's not out of negative intentions or something. It's obviously coming from good intentions, yes. So therefore, we have named it, or labeled what a prince had discovered through his understanding, development of his life, and then he never, I mean, in short, Siddhartha, yes, never asked someone to photograph my enlightenment under the Bodhi tree and publish that in a magazine. And then write that script that into stones so that it will live on and on and on way after way after my death, and so that everyone will remember me, you know. No, he had no intention at all. Although we would say, oh, it was Buddha's intention to teach it in such a way, the things he conveyed, so that it will be available for all of us, in order to justify that actually it was to I don't know, to turn it into something something long lasting, to turn it into a religion and so on. No, that was never the case. I would personally like to think that he was just doing his own thing. Yeah. And those who were not just impressed, but completely overwhelmed and overjoyed by what he was doing, which reflected in what they wished to do, starting from the first five friends of his, who became known as the first five disciples, that they just allowed to do or to mimic what Siddhartha was doing, you know. And then, yes, it is a social thing to have such a thing become more and more popular, and that's how it came into being till now. Yes. So at the moment, probably it's a popular culture now. At the moment, and at some point, it will turn into something more traditional. Maybe after some time, again disappear a little bit, again come back in another form. We don't know. Yes. But this is not really our concern, you know. If we have the merit, it will remain in various forms that will be very beneficial for all of us. But deep down, what we have to know is that each of us are intelligible enough to know what is what, actually. Yeah. And it is sad that it only takes disasters in the form of natural and man-made ones to make us wake up to it. Yeah.
那以这样呢，所以可以说呢，就产生了这样的一个这个呢佛教的这个呢思维。但是呢，可以讲说呢，这个其实呢，佛教或者是佛教徒呢，都是我们呢自己呢给他呢安利的一个名字，把它呢就是自己呢给它的一个名称。那么当然这也不是说呢，它是出发于这个不好的这个发心用意，其实呢，它的出发点也是好的。那么这样的一个呢，把它呢取一个名字命名，是让我们呢能够呢去了解更多。那么当时呢，悉达多佛陀呢，他在这个菩提树下证悟的时候，他并没有说要有人来拍照说他在菩提下证悟，或者呢是在石头上刻下这个经文这也并不是呢他所要的这个呢遗愿。那么这样的这个做法呢，其实是给或者是说他想要给后世的人来呢，就是知道他，然后呢依恋他，他并没有这样的这种呢想法。那么这可以讲说呢，佛陀他主要的这些传达的，可以呢把它说当成是一个这个宗教。还是呢一个这宗教也并不是呢佛陀他本来的这个遗愿，他本来根本就没有呢这样的这种呢就是有这样的心愿或者是这种的这个心态。那么呢，后来呢，就是到这个现在，或者是它已经呢消失了，或者呢是我们的心里面呢会觉得说，它会以呢另外一个的这个形象然后呢会倒回来，以我们的一般上的这种呢观念来想的话呢，就是认为到现在为止呢，就是它或许会以另外一种，它不虽然是消失了，会以另外一种的方式倒回来。那么这并不是呢我们呢所关心的。那么呢，其实当呢一个人呢，如果呢他就是有一个形象，他能够呢利益呢这个所有的这个众生，那么呢他也能够呢了知到。他能够呢利益这个众生而常存在的话呢，那么我们呢是有这个聪慧的这个知识去明白，那么呢去了知到呢这自然的这些呢天灾的这个灾祸的这个发生，可以讲说是让我们的一个醒钟提醒我们。
So Meaning that while we are healthy, while we are conscious, while we are well not in the midst of a social unrest, why can't we realize that? How wonderful it would be if we could realize that we have all these qualities and potentials while everything's all somewhat all right. That's the pity, I suppose. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Um, as long as we are aware at the end that even though it is taking even though somehow it seems to depend on a certain obstacle for us to realize our potential, at least we realize, or the conditions are there for us to realize. And if that takes place, then it's all right. Yeah.
当我们呢现在呢就是还健康，然后呢也不再呢没有遭受到这种呢不幸的这个事情，我们呢是可以呢明白到我们呢自身呢是有呢这个可以讲说是有这种呢能力，还有呢这种潜能来呢获得这个证悟的。只要呢我们知道只要我们能够，虽然呢有一些的这种呢障碍，但是呢最终我们呢还是会呢了解和呢证悟到的。那么这就是因为呢我们呢本来就有那样的这个条件，而只要呢我们呢一开始觉知的话呢，这些就能够呢这些障碍种种呢就可以说呢引导到我们呢去了解到它的这个实相了。所以呢是可以。
So, in the context of AI, I have no real comment because every time the term AI is mentioned, all I can think of is Skynet, which to the certain enthusiasts it will speak, to the rest it means nothing. And so all I can think is if the general notion of, I think, AI does persist, and I'm not talking about just ChatGPT. At the moment, I'm against it. But I can pretty much predict that at some point it will envelop me. But till then, I would say that if these technologies does, I don't know, in some ways have an impact on us, I don't think it would be a negative one. Yeah. Yes.
那么至于呢，AI 呢，法王呢，它没有多大的comment 是什么？啊？没有多大的评语，没有呢这个多大的评语。那么一般上呢，这个 AI 的存在呢，而且不止呢是这个 Chat App 它能够呢有很多产生很多的这种呢预言和这个的东西，比如呢是有利于这个科技对我们呢是有影响的，但是呢并不是呢这种坏的影响。
Meaning that every technology that we have invented so far, starting from, I don't know, electricity, and then now microphone, and then, I mean, I'm just thinking of the most used technologies that seem to really help us, yes? Otherwise, I'll have to shout. So when we think of this, of course, the saying is there, which is, I think, evergreen, and that's why I didn't repeat that. It's all depends on the user. Um, but the other fact that I'm trying to draw on is that that it depends on what was it? Yes. Normally, all these technologies are supposed to make our life more comfortable, so that it will give us more time. Yes, that was the whole purpose of all these technologies. It was supposed to give us time. Yeah. So that we don't have to worry about washing the dishes, planting crops, and harvesting them, and transporting us from one place to the other, so that we could focus on what we deem most important. Of course, as Buddhists, we would say so that we can meditate more or something like that.
Yeah.
Yes. And so, if that happens, then that's it. Yeah.
那么呢，科技对我们呢都是带来会很大的这个帮助的。比如我们常用的这种科技，好像microphone 啊，还是一般上所用的这个科技，对我们呢都是也会有这个帮助的。比如那么呢，这当然也要看呢这个应用者的本身他的这个这个思维。那么呢，当然还有一点呢，就是这个科技会让我们呢带来比较舒适的这个生活。那么也因为呢有这样的这个科技，会让我们呢可以说腾出更多的这个时间。比如呢，那些种植农场的，他们的种植的时候，或者是收割的时候，或者呢是运送的时候呢，这些呢都可以省下很多的这个时间。那么这省下很多的时间，如果以我们的这个佛教徒来讲啊，就是可以想说，可以给我们更多的时间来做这样的一个的这个禅修。
Because the technologies are basically like with any technology, we have depended on horses, cows, and so on, pigeons. The first generation of SMS. Therefore, if these technologies are basically neutral. Yes, it's completely neutral. Yeah. And so therefore, it's well, I didn't want to repeat, but I'm repeating. It depends on the user. Yes, the attitude of it. Yes.
那么呢，其实呢，这些以前呢，我们的用的都是马啊、牛啊之类的这些没有这个科技的时候，可以说是第一代的这种 SMS 啊。然后呢，现在可以讲说，这是科技本身它是属于中性的，当然都是，比方说它本来是不重复，现在呢也有重复，它呢就是要看那个呢用的人本身了。
Yeah. Actually, for the last 2 days, from this morning till now, till late afternoon, I was preparing already for one of the questions that I thought I didn't completely answer last time, which was a question between, what was it? What if you lost the will to live or the will to work? So I had prepared a lot, but for some reason till now I took the whole time to talk about other things. Yes. So therefore, I don't know if you need to continue on that aspect or something else.
Actually, the next question is similarly related.
Okay.
So, what is the best Vajrayana method.
Oh.
Okay. To deal with post-trauma disorder, PTSD, anxiety, insomnia, depression.
Yes. Very good.
OK， 就是问上司最好的办法，金刚秤的办法来处理创伤、精神创伤后遗症，然后紧张、忧郁症，这些用金刚秤来说，哪一个办法是比较好？
Yes. According to Buddhism, somehow PTSD, yes, it's sort of irrelevant. Because there was no yesterday. Yes. So it's interesting, of course. But nevertheless, yes, of course, beside the humor, yes, in a fast-paced culture, which we are trying our very best to turn all corners of the globe into, obviously we haven't what happens, I think, is that then we are not really able to be present as much as we would like, which was always a challenge for us as human beings ever since we had a human society. And with this fast-paced culture, it makes things more and more difficult to be in the present, I think. And so therefore, then in order to make up for it, then we, I suppose, have no choice or option but to somehow rely more and more on the past, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, that's the thing about, I don't know, nature or life, or in 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 Mandarin, 自然, is that somehow everything works out. Yes, at the end of the day, yes. There will be a lot of commotion here, there, and there will, every now and then, there will always be a point where we feel that, okay, I think it's ruined. I think we have messed this thing up. I think that's the end, almost to the edge, yes. But somehow, for some strange reason, things work out, and I'm not saying that's it, but nevertheless, when we are trying to be, when we become one-track mind, into thinking next, then somehow it's not just me saying, but I think everyone is saying it, that then somehow we are not really able to be in sync with what's happening now. And so therefore, then we have no choice but to sort of record what we think is happening now, so that later we can review it, And so I don't know, maybe the PTSD, is it? I don't know. PTSD, okay, PTSD is probably a side effect of that, yeah. Because if we are more present, in the moment, we don't have to go back into the archive, of what took place, or the diary, yes, and then develop some sort of a whisper about it, and then the translation gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse as time goes by, and then draw all kinds of conclusions. Whereas if we are aware of the current moment, good, bad, doesn't matter, yes, we don't need a witness. I myself saw it, I myself felt it, and that's that. It's complete, So that was a long one.
回答这个问题呢，就是说创伤后遗症、焦虑症、忧郁症等等呢，根据这个佛教的这个观点来看呢，它跟佛教呢是有相当一定程度的这个关联的。那么大家可能会发现说，这是一个很有趣的一个可能一个发现吧，就是说这样的一种症状的时候，有时候就是因为太过纠结于昨天，纠结于过去，那在我们现在的这样的一个社会的一个状态里面呢，我们是处在一个快速、节奏非常极快的这种一种时代。那么我们时刻都陷入在现在发生什么事情，而不是活在这个当下。所以很显然的，当我们处在这种快速的这种时代，这种快速文化节奏的这样的一个状态的时候呢，我们所面对的这个挑战呢，就会非常的多，让我们很难一直把自己的心呢安住在这个当下。在很无可奈何的情况之下呢，我们往往就会一直的去捉紧或者回溯到这个过去。当然，你一直在回忆这个过去，这不是一件坏事。但是就这个跟这个自然跟这个生命呢，它就不能很和谐的，很和谐、很协调的，共存共处。那么在我们这个时代呢，你会发现很多的这个时候呢，常常会有一种可能这样的事情发生，那样的事情发生。我用一个词，可能这种动乱啊、骚动啊、震动啊这样的东西，时时一直在发生着。所以当我们一直这样一直去回忆，一直去想说刚才发生了什么事，然后我现在记住它，待会儿等我这个事情过后之后，我要怎么处理？当你处在这样的一个状态的时候呢，整个情绪会处在那个几乎崩溃的这个边缘。所以这个就是我们现在这个时代我们的这个状态。所以，如果我们可以时常的让我们的心安住在当下的话，而不是一直去紧捉过去。比方说，法王讲的，我们总是回溯那个档案，然后我们去看很多的资料，很多的资料做了很多的翻译，然后一代一代或者一页一页的这样去翻译。可是你会发现，那个内容越翻越糟，内容越来越糟，所以你会得到的那个结论会让你非常的沮丧。所以重要的是，我们处在当下，我现在看到什么，我现在感受到什么，把心安在这个当下。
Thank you. So, yes. So how are we doing with time? If, like I said last time, the other day, if any of you need to go back to your home, to your children, for work, please don't hesitate. What I say is not like a paid instruction or something, it's just plain gibberish. And so therefore mm, you can listen to the recording and develop PTSD. So therefore, any of you who need to leave, you're most welcome. But for if the organizers, the volunteers, because we have to think of them also, if they allow, and if you yourselves also wish, I can continue further. Yeah.
那么同样的，就是说呢，因为我们呢这个时间的这个关系啊，如果呢大家第二天呢就是要去上班啊，还是家里也是要照顾的，那么呢要回家的呢是可以先行回家的。那么呢，法王说呢，当然他讲的这个呢不是口诀，是一个呢这个就是自由的一种呢说法。那么大家呢可以就是听那个录音，然后呢自己呢可以呢去就是听了，然后呢去加上一个这个创伤后遗症。
I think, Your Holiness, I think most important is we really want to hear your view on what happened if the person lost his will to live.
Yes. Yes.
我个人认为，我是很想听，法王本身对于一个失去生命意义和生存的人有什么劝解和怎么样去说服或是避免这问题。
So initially I tried to reflect for the last day or two about that, but then after much reflection, then I realized that it's also kind of pointless also to reflect on that, because of the very fact that the thing is, sooner or later we're all going. All of us in this room will be not in this room at some point, and so therefore it's a very peculiar thing to think of, I don't know, going earlier. Yeah.
那么呢，讲到这个有关于呢失去这个呢活下去的这个意愿，那么就是几天呢，法王呢他也有呢去想这个呢问题，可以讲说呢，我们呢每个人呢迟早都会走的，也可以说呢，在我们今天的这个大殿里面呢，大家也是呢迟早总有一天呢也是会走的，所以呢，这就是那个问题所在。
I suppose probably once in a blue moon, actually, maybe something like that happens, where you truly and utterly lose completely the will to go on. Yeah. And it's a rare case, actually. And it happens almost, in a way, one could say, quite naturally. Yeah. And that's something, if that's the case, I think then it's something, we kind of have to respect that. Yeah. But otherwise, what is happening during my generation time, and I fear that it will be the case with the next generations and so on, is that we like to do things that are quite cool, that are quite different from others. Others, there is no other beside our senior generation. Yes. And so therefore, we like to sort of repeat certain epics, or that was quite unheard of or something unique and so on. And we kind of like to sort of repeat that so that it kind of makes us feel cool, But there's nothing cool about it, actually. Yes.
那么呢，其实呢，有时候是呢，会有这样的一种呢，这个念头和想法的，但是可以说呢，这是非常少的，这个例子。那么呢，问题呢，就是说，如果真的是有这样的这个想法的话，比如说在我们的这一代，或者呢是下一代、下一代，那么有一些做法呢，我们呢跟其他的人不同，我们呢就认为呢自己是比较酷，就是呢会比较呢特别的那一种呢类型。就是跟其他的人不一样。那么其实呢，从我们的前辈他们呢开始，就是呢重复的，就是会有这样的一种呢就是以其他人不同的这个做法的这种作风。
How to say cool in Mandarin?
酷就是帅，很帅啦，不是帅啦，炫呐，
炫
也炫也是酷呢，就是炫也是可以。AI 酷有没有？没有。
I think none of us would know. We need someone. We need someone else. There's someone young, to say. I don't know, but basically, 那个哇，感觉，that's all I can say. Yes. 炫
炫。The common word is like very different 帅 like that,
in trend, no. Okay. Anyone in their 20s who can
潮流，很潮
okay 潮
很潮流。
Anyway, pretend to be Sadie. Okay. Anyway, I suppose it's part of human nature where we would like to capture and repeat what is rare. Yeah, like truffles. The rare mushroom. Not the drug mushroom, okay?
松露，就是非常稀有啊，好像松露这样。
So yes, and so now all I can say is that it's not cool. Yes. Because the consequence is a very strange one in this particular perspective of mine, is that it influences your parents' generation in a way, and which is very much happening in many ways nowadays. Most of our parents, not my parents, but but otherwise most parents, they are copying their children's clothing trend, their lifestyle, and so on. and and then you can just see how repulsive that is to you when your parents follow your fashion style. So therefore you are having that kind of ripple effect on on society. So therefore that's one of the things that I wanted to say. But the main thing is that as I said in the beginning, yes, there are rare moments, yes, but otherwise, if we really look around, there is actually not just plenty but countless of reasons for us to find all kinds of I don't know, drive, will, reason to go on. Yeah. In fact, it's countless. Yeah, really countless.
那么呢，其实呢，这呢并不是呢一种呢很潮流的这个作风来的。那么这样的一个的这个心态呀、所以讲说呢，是可以受到了这个我们的这个父母的这个会有这个影响的。那么呢，很多时候呢，这个父母们呢，他们呢就会多方面的这种影响，多数父母啊，他们呢就会就是说他们呢会去和这个孩子们的这个衣物啊，他们的生活的这个形式啊，还有他们的这种衣服的这种潮流来呢，就是以他们呢就是能够联系的这个当今的这个社会的这种呢联系的。那么我们可以想呢，其实这是呢一个时刻，就是让我们呢看看我们的周遭，是呢有这许多的这种呢原因来让其实呢能很多很多很多的这个无数的这个原因是让我们呢去坚持下去的。
So therefore, of course, I'm not saying that. Although I already said it's not cool, but beside that, it's also there is also no room, no place to say don't or please don't. Lose your will to live. There's no way. We cannot stop it. We cannot prevent it. But we can at least sort of help oneself, help others also, to see what kind of conditions we have.
那么呢，其实讲这些呢，如果呢可以讲说呢，我们没有方法，也没有呢，可以呢，有这个跟他们讲说，请你们呢不要这样的做，请你们呢就是停止这样的一种想法，我们呢是无可避免的，我们呢没有那样的一个能力或者是空间来对他们这样说。我们唯有的呢，就是呢帮助自己，还有帮助他人来看到呢这种生存下来的条件。
What we meaning in the context of the condition we have, which is basically the human condition, unlike I mean, compared to the other conditions such as animals, where we deem as lower, and gods as higher, they just do not have what we have, in short, in terms of the conditions to experience, to express exactly what we feel, and to understand, and for others to understand us, and for us to understand others. It's something that only we have. Yeah.
那么呢，这个关于呢这个条件，就是呢，我们呢可以呢去对比这个呢条件的，比如说呢，这个有一些这个比较高的，或者呢是比较低的这种呢条件，比如说呢动物是属于比较低的，那么呢这个天界呢是天人呢是属于比较高的这种条件。但这并不等于呢，就是说我们呢要怎样去经历，把我们所经历的这种的条件呢，来把它表达出来。就是说呢，我们呢要能够去明白他人的这种呢，他们的处在的这种呢环境的条件，同时呢，我们呢也可以呢是明白自己和他人的这种处在的这种条件的情况。
Animals, no matter how intelligent they are and sensitive they are, the thing is they cannot communicate properly. Gods, they have all the means to communicate way better than if we had, I don't know, millions of AIs we would have at our disposal. They could move not just mountains but universes and universes, actually. But somehow they are completely distracted, and so it is as good as they don't care. Whereas like for the enthusiasts, like Vogons, from the guide to the hitchhikers, yes. So yes. So therefore, anyway, we human beings, while we have this condition, it's not really we, but as long as we have this condition, which is very short and fleeting, we can complete, as I said earlier, we can express exactly what we are feeling, because we have the most sophisticated languages.
那么呢，无论呢他们呢是怎样的这个高等的也好，但是呢，对于呢这个沟通方面呢，比如说呢天界的天人，他们呢有这个很大的这个呢潜力，他们呢可以呢移动这个山，但是呢他们却没有办法呢能够呢表达他们呢的这个可以说呢是不能够呢以很好的来去表达的。那么如果呢他们呢有这个任何的干扰的话呢，他们就不去管一切了。那么呢他们呢就是完全的就是不去管它。至于我们人类呢，就有比较好的这个因缘和条件了。我们呢，就是可以呢很好的去沟通，可以呢很好的去表达，因为呢我们呢有这种呢很多的这个语言能够呢帮助我们呢去交流表达自己的。
So, meaning we can express and or we have the technology of language far more superior than just saying "I hungry, I eat," but to but to say far more elaborate than that to a point where we almost feel that I can read your mind, and so therefore, if or not to say if, but and therefore, there is every reason for us to actually explore this, because I think one of the main reasons why we lose the will to live is because we only, well, maybe it's due to our upbringing, maybe it's due to circumstances, we only saw a very small corner of the world or a very small part of life, and we were so used to that, and that we thought that was it. And so obviously it is only natural in life to have disappointments, yes, of all kinds, from family, from friends, from society, whatnot, yes. But if you just widen that perspective, or if you zoom out a little bit, then we will see, not to say the larger picture, not in that sense, but at least we will see far more interesting things, actually. Yeah. Yet not too foreign. It will be still very much related to the very first corner that we know or that we knew, but uh, sort of somehow seeing that the only world that we knew so far is actually connected and interdependent to many other things, and therefore then develop a sense of curiosity, yeah, and not just having to just survive, but actually develop curiosity.
那么呢，我们人类所能表达的语言，并不只限制于说饿了吃饭这样吃而已，而是能够呢表达更多，还有呢我们的这种呢种种的这个感受的。所以呢，有很多的原因让我们呢能够呢继续的去呢探讨。那么为什么呢？一个人呢他会丧失去活下去的这种意愿和意志力呢？那主要呢是由于呢这个环境的这个影响。那么其实我们所处在的环境，我们的生活里面，就是我们呢就非常一个呢小的一个角落，也可以说呢是在我们的生活的生命里面呢是一个非常小的一个部分。那么我们常常在生命中感到失望，比如呢生活中感到失望，比如说从我们的我们的家庭，或者呢是我们的朋友，或者是我们的社会。那么如果我们能以更加这个大的视觉来看这个世界的话呢，那么我们的生命，我们的生活呢，将变得呢，就是更加的可以说呢，就是有趣，更加的能有那个生气。所以呢，就是在这样的一个世界很广大的，能够呢可以说呢，就是可以接触到这个非常广大的这个世界的话呢，那么它呢就是让我们呢对我们的这个生活对我们的生命来讲呢，就是会让我们增添一些情趣，而不会呢只是一直呢呆留在我们的一个小角落里面的一些呢这种自己的这种呢负面的这种想法。
Did that make sense? So. Yeah. It's too general. Yes, that's the thing. So if you put it in a more in a context where we are more used to, then actually, I'm not trying to be radical or be provocative or anything like that. I'm not saying that's not in my nature. I can be provocative in my own time, but for all of our sake, of course, I should be level-headed. So therefore, I would say something like, the thing that we often try to focus on at the beginning of every practice, Dharma practice, renunciation. That's something to think about in this context.
那么或许呢， 可能大家会觉得这个呢答案或者今天的讲题呢是属于呢比较呢笼统一般性的，那么呢反而说呢它不是那种呢会讲很激进的，这不是呢它的这个原本的这个本性。那么呢比如说我们呢应当呢可能就是比较专注于从我们的这个佛教的这种呢基础的这个开始，就是呢出离心。
Because of course, in a more traditional manner, we can give all kinds of reasons why not to lose the will to live, because we have a precious human body. But that could make things worse, you know, rather than helping, you know. And so, therefore, obviously, Buddha is all-knowing, and it's evident in the way he has presented, you know, by beginning with the idea of renunciation. Yes, because I think renunciation, if you really focus, it has all the remedies to overcome that problem of losing the will to live, actually. Yeah.
那其实在我们的这个传统里面，为什么呢没有讲到这个呢？如何去对治这种呢失去生命意义意志力的呢？其实呢，佛陀呢他是全知的。那么呢，在我们的修法里面，最基本的这个处离心，如果我们能够专注于这个处离心的话，那么可以想在多数我们的所面对的这些困难呢，它都呢本然的能够呢迎刃而解的。
Renunciation is, or not is, but it could be interpreted in this way. Thank you. That losing the will to live, of course, is coming from, I suppose, from constant disappointment, depression, and therefore not being able to, at the same time, not being able to express that out, you know, and therefore you are sort of in a condition or situation where you have to bottle that up. In Tibetan culture, bottling up is a good thing. Just so you know. Yes, so we are very good at it. But in the fast-paced culture and modern culture, bottling up is very dangerous. Yes. So, okay.
出离心，那么呢，可以呢，如果呢，一个人呢，他会失去这个生活的这个意愿的话，往往是因为呢，他储存了太多的失望，还有呢，太多的这种呢，可以讲说忧郁的这个心，没办法释放出来。那么，如果呢，他有这个无处所表达发泄，一旦他能够发泄说出来的话呢，那么呢，就还是好的，是能够呢比较好。所以呢，以这个现代来讲啊，我们呢讲就是说呢，他没有发泄，他把它封闭起来不说，那么呢是危险的。
So, in the case of the renunciation, it's a very interesting aspect, because, of course, it's almost like the borderline. It's like the well, sometimes I think it is translated as because it's in synchronization with the practice of refuge. So therefore, sometimes it is translated as conversion, you know, converting into Buddhism or something like, or migrating or something like that. But I suppose in its own right, one can probably say that in the right context, but normally that's not the case. So renunciation is very skillful, because it's not saying again you have to be completely an open book, transparent, and cry all out instead of LOL, COL, or CAL, I don't know. Anyway, it's sort of internally, one could say, or from within. You don't hold back, basically, of your disappointments. And then when you find the suitable sort of friends, spiritual friends, what we would say, then you actually share it, that I am actually angry. I am disappointed of life, And so actually there is, so it is I think it's a very beautiful method where we can actually release it, and not just release it, but actually let go. Yes, because normally, yes, from time to time, under the I don't know, influence of intoxication and so on, we do release here, there, or depending on the circumstances. But we just release, but we don't let go. Yes, but in the case of renunciation, if a genuine one takes place, you actually let go of it. Yeah.
那么呢，这个出离心，那呢，因为呢是和这个皈依一起呢，这个通常是在一起修学的，所以呢，这个出离心呢，也可以说呢是把我们呢转换进入了这个佛教的一个呢这个过程来的。那其实呢，它是一个非常善巧的这个方法来的。它可以说呢，是把我们整个的这个内心，把它呢，就是透明的，像一个簿子这样的本子这样的打开。当然，并不是说我们呢把它呐喊出来，就是呢从内外把它呐喊出来。其实它是呢一种呢我们的这种呢内在的这种呢释放。也就是说呢，从我们的内在的这种呢，失望，还有呢，我们的内在的这种呢，就是不高兴的、失望的，把它呢能够呢，把它呢能够释放出来。那么呢，当我们呢遇到我们的这个佛友或者是朋友，我们可以跟他分享，我们呢对这个生活，我们呢对这个生活是失望的，我们呢对这个生活呢，并没有呢，那么就是呢，就是我们呢生气我们所面对的这样的一个生活，所以呢，从我们的这个内在把它呢发泄出来，而至于这个处理心，不但呢能够把它发泄出来，而且呢还可以呢完全的这个放下。那么一般上我们所处的环境，虽然我们呢可能会把内心的这种呢失望，把内心的这种呢就是生气于自己所处的这个环境，虽然能够发泄，但是呢却没办法呢把它完全放下。但是呢，通过出离心，我们就可以呢把它发泄出来，又可以呢把它完全的放下。
So in this case, renounce. I mean, I don't know if it's a perfect translation to the word in Tibetan ngenjung, ngeparjungwa, but probably close enough, So renounce, let go. That basically a sense of strong conviction has to take place, like certainty, maybe not conviction, certainty, And so therefore, with the help of your spiritual friend, then they're supposed to help you have a comprehensive picture or idea, because sometimes we are just disappointed with just one thing because we have lived in one small corner of the world, yes. But this spiritual friend is supposed to help you have a comprehensive view of the world, and then make sure that how everything is interconnected, and therefore, if you want to be angry, don't have a measly anger, but have a proper anger. and because if you have a comprehensive picture, then you have no more ties, no more links. Basically, you completely empty the room, sort of thing.
那么呢，这个出离心在这个藏文呢法王说是非常贴切的，因为呢它是属于呢这个放下，所以呢它可以呢让我们呢很就是坚定的、很决定的我们呢就是知道很坚定的我们的这个善友善知识，它呢能够帮助到呢我们，因为呢有这样的一个这个概念的话，那么呢我们呢就不会呢就是只活在自己的一个呢生命的一个小角落里面呢，就是没有办法呢离开这个小角落，因为呢这个善知识它有呢一个呢非常完整套的一个呢，就是让我们能够呢，把我们的内在对这种的失望，对呢这种气愤，能够呢把它发泄出来，而是呢正确的。很完整正确的发泄出来，而不是呢那种呢不是很正当的，而是呢很正确的一种可以把我们这种正确的气氛的这种呢把它呢完全的发泄出来，就是呢全部的完整的，所以呢里面呢没有一丝一毫的存留。
So yes. Now, of course, the idea of renunciation is something that only we can talk among ourselves, because we have some ideas about what it is. Yes. So to the greater mass, then of course it may be more challenging to interpret that. But as long as we know that that there is something there, then it could make the difference actually between actually committing suicide or not, because in the case of renunciation, then you actually touch the actual subject, the actual core of what we are really disappointed about, and deal with it right there and then. And not only deal with it in a sort of temporary way, but actually from the core, and then you root it out. Yes. And then we allow this physical body to do what it wants to do, meaning if it has a certain longevity aspect to it, then we complement that. Yeah. Because now that we have let go or flushed out all of our disappointments, then suddenly we can think clearer. Yeah. And we know, or without having to be told, we ourselves will know what makes sense. Now it's like not to say a fresh start, but somehow I can begin to do something I really want to do, which I couldn't do all this while, sort of thing. And then from there you start, So then you begin the Bodhisattva's journey of starting from a place where you feel that this is really me, this profession or this lifestyle is really me. Of course, provided that it's not to become an assassin, as I said last time. But otherwise, there are countless of professions, yes, and so therefore from there you start, and it will lead you to all sorts of beautiful paths.
那么这处理心呢，是在我们呢之间呢可以讲述的，因为我们呢已经有了那个概念，但是呢，如果要对其他没有这种概念的人来讲呢，会有呢一定的这个挑战性的。那么呢，有一些就是呢，总之呢，我们呢就是有 这已经呢有这样的一个概念存在这边了。那么这出离心其实呢就是我们呢真正的这个主题所在，真正的核心所在。有这样的一个主题，有这样的一个核心，我们就知道我们希望的到底是什么。以这样的一个核心作为这个出发点的话呢，那么呢，我们呢才能够呢真正把我们的那种呢里面的这种呢所有的这些失望和焦虑呢，把它呢放下，就是呢不只呢是完全的把它呢就是发泄和放下了。那么所有的这些呢失望，当他呢完全的，就是呢就是放下，就是呢清楚了，就是呢已经清楚了之后呢，我们呢不用人家来告诉我们应该怎么样的去做，我们呢自己已经真实的知道自己呢是要如何的去做。那么在这样的自己的很清楚的了解之后呢，我们呢就会持续的走上了这个菩萨的这个菩萨道。那么在这个菩萨道的时候呢，我们呢就是呢更加的这个了解。我们呢，应该要如何呢，次第的去走，次第的这个去做。所以呢，之后呢，当然我们的这个祖辈有很多的这个方法来呢教导我们的。我们呢，在从这而开始之后呢，我们呢就能够呢做很多各方面的，就是呢自己完全会知道怎么去走，能够呢成就这各方面的。
Every year or this time also we did the practice of aspiration, yes, and then annually also we do the aspiration prayer practice at Bodh Gaya, and the main text that we use there is that of the King of Aspiration prayers, and I don't know if there are translations about how that text was, or how that sadhana or prayer was founded, or let's say composed. But there are some, of course, existing in Tibetan, but I think in English, I'm not sure if they are still available. If they are not, it's a good project. If not, if it is available, great, you know. So one of the things that I like about that part of the founding is that the very Bodhisattva who was searching for Buddha, or Mahabodhisattva Samanthabhadra himself, because he was so curious to learn about the path of aspiration. And so therefore, in that journey, then he came across, I think either 100 or more than 100 different masters or teachers in this case. And if you read those passages, I think it will be very, very interesting, because then you can see, at least to me, the way I saw it was that it's beautiful, actually, yes, because there it sort of resonated to me that okay, the interest, the genuine interest, plays a huge role, you know, into becoming a bodhisattva. And so therefore he would come across someone, basically a teacher, of course, one of the many teachers, and someone was just completely involved in making the most beautiful incense. And that would mean, of course, that would involve, of course, all sorts of things, you know, gathering the herbs, knowing the technique of how to make incense and so on. Yes.
那么呢， 在这个菩萨道的修法里面，当然呢有这个发愿的这个文的这个修法。那么在我们的菩提迦耶呢，每次都也是呢有念到呢这个发愿祈愿文的里面呢，当然有讲到了这个这个菩萨的这个发愿文。那么菩萨的这个发愿文，它的这个原创啊，其实呢就是当时候呢这个菩萨，当然呢就是这个普贤菩萨。那么呢，他非常呢好奇，非常好奇这个发愿的这个道路，是要怎样的修持，所以呢，他就依止了100位的这个导师，从100位的一个导师那边呢，他来呢修起了这个呢发广大的这个愿。那么以这样发一个清净的这个广大愿呢，其实呢是非常的这个美妙的，非常的这个有呢这个价值和这个意义的一种呢这个修法，那是呢相当的一个有趣的这个一个修法。那么呢，当然他呢有一位导师，这个导师呢，他主要呢就是去供养这个香，很美妙的，这个美妙的这个香。那么要供养这个香，当然就是要做这个香，所以呢就收集许多的香料，然后呢来制作这个香。
And then through that, and so basically this teacher taught the path of aspiration by explaining in very clear detail of how to make the best incense, basically, or how to make incense.
那么他的导师呢，在教导他的这个发愿的这个祈愿道的时候呢，其实就是跟他解释怎么做呢，这个最深妙的这个熏香。
And then in another case, it was the practitioner happened to arrive at an island, and in there, then of course, after much searching, then the direction was pointed towards. I mean, he followed the direction basically to where the teacher would be found. And at a sort of a beach, then he found a child, basically, a kid. And he was surrounded by, well, of course, I don't know if it's translation, Tibetan translation, or something else, or Indian translation, I don't know. It said millions and millions of children were around him, but that's either Tibetan or Indian exaggeration. Because we like that. But basically, it is safe to say that this kid was surrounded by many other kids. Yes, and what they were doing was none other than playing sandcastle. Yeah, nothing else. Basically making beautiful decorations and beautiful forms. It is said mandala, but I would just say sandcastle. And so, therefore, and through that, this child was able to again explain the ways of or the path of aspiration through that sheer building of sandcastles.
但这个有一个修行人呢，他就来到了这个小岛方面呢去寻找。那么呢，他就跟着这个指示的，跟着呢这个方向，那么呢他就来了，找到了这个有很多的这个小孩围绕着。那么呢，他就跟他们呢讲述了这个道路。那么那时候呢，他们其实呢是在建呢这个沙坛城，以沙坛城呢来做这个装饰。那么小孩呢就讲述了有关于呢这个道路，然后同时呢建立起这个沙坛城，沙的这个城堡其实是坛城来的。
Anyway, I deviated a bit, but nevertheless, the point is that going back is the renunciation. Yes, I really think and feel that there is something there. You know, we have to be honest. Any one of us in this room are reliable to committing suicide. You know, at any given moment. Actually, yes, we have to be honest about that. And can we stop it? No, we cannot. Yes, but can we make our life interesting? Can we make our life meaningful? Then yes. How? Well, since we are supposed to be practicing Buddha Dharma, if you focus on renunciation, we will find, not to say a great distraction, but actually something that will overwhelm the measly idea of suicide. Yeah.
那这个出离心，那么老师的来讲，如果呢我们呢听完了这个出离心，如果是在我们呢这边当中呢，有人真的升起了那种呢寻短的这个念头的话，当然我们呢也没办法去呢阻止他的。那么如果呢他听闻了这个佛法出离心的话呢，那么他的所有的这些干扰。还有呢，这种呢，内心的这些都会呢，获得这个克服的这些障碍。
So I think I have done enough. By now I can see your legs needing some stretching. So therefore I think maybe this is it. Yeah. Or would you like to have one more? I don't know. No. Okay. There was a clear no. The cheeks were like jiggle. You know? No. Yeah. Okay, I will give a very simple yes and no answer.
Okay. The question here is, I'm asking a clarification about survivor.
Okay.
Because when during the Medicine Buddha empowerment,
Yes.
you mentioned that renunciation.
Yes.
Yes. And then you say survivor is not important.
Yeah.
Yes. It's, and then while we are all waiting for you to do some blessings and cure and everything, you talk about renunciation. So can you please clarify that part on survivor is not important?
I think I've explained that for the last 28 minutes, yes.
So in short, okay, what about longevity and extending life in Buddha Dharma?
Yes. Okay. The first,
How to approach them?
yeah.
And how do we turn that obstacle into a path?
Yes.
And you want me to translate?
Yes, please.
在药师佛灌顶的时候，法王说生存是不重要的。然后他也讲过，每个人在每个人等着治疗药是佛嘛好，就是治疗病症、治疗痛苦的时候，他是说哦，我们出离心放下。那么在佛法里面，怎么样才可以延寿和增强我们的生命力？然后有什么办法可以做到这个的？
Yes. In the case of longevity, what is the benefit and how to achieve it and so on, yes? Yes, it is very safe to say that the methods are there, and if you follow the sadhana carefully, it is achievable. It's not a fantasy. Yes, that's very clear. Yet at the same time, how to say, I'm not trying to sort of go too far, too extreme into the idea of quality over quantity and so on. But nevertheless, that still is there, meaning that should a proper renunciation take place, then any given minute, hour, a day would seem like a lifetime, and each of us would feel extremely productive, I feel, yes. And we will feel like as if we have lived for eons, yeah. But otherwise, can we just strip everything, off, and then utilize the sadhana or the method of, let's say, for example, Vaitara or Amitayus or Medicine Buddha? Can we just use it just to have longevity? Yes, we still can, actually. Yes. But if you do it, then, or prior to doing that, we can just try to imagine, how it would be if you could live more than 100, or live to 150 or 200 years old, and the reality is no friends, no family, and alone, So scratch that, Let's say we all live up to 150 years or 200 years old. We will be so tired of each other that actually it would create the idea of suicide, So, yes, there we have it.
那么呢，其实呢，在我们的这个真正的这个仪轨，如果我们呢依靠它的这个方法，是有这个方法，依靠仪轨正确来做的话呢，是可以做到这一点的，可以是增强我们的寿命力，让我们呢延长我们的寿命。当然，我们呢不用去讲这个品质，或者呢是这个数量，只要呢是有这个呢正确的这个出离心。那么在我们的这一世当中呢，如果呢我们呢要就是说延长我们的寿命的话呢，那么是可以呢能够呢做得到的。那么比如说呢，我们用这个呢仪轨里面，无论呢是这个百度母的这些修法里面呢，能够让我们获取这个长寿吗？答案是有的。但是我们呢要就是活到多长呢？100岁、150岁、200岁。但是呢，我们呢应当要倒回头来想一想，如果我们真的活到100岁、150岁，那么我们将没有朋友陪伴我们，也没有亲友，我们呢就只有呢孤独、孤老而终。所以呢，在这样的一个呢情况之下呢，我们呢就是来修这样的这个法的时候呢，那么我们呢就是要有这样的一个认知和了解。
So, yes. So I suppose at the end of the day, it's quality over quantity. Yes. So then, with that, then I would like to wish you all a very good evening. I would like to thank Venerable Shangpa Rinpoche for making this occasion possible, along with our organizers, volunteers, and everyone, so that we could meet like this, spend time like this. And of course, it's not over. We have the 2 coming days where we could still focus on the practice. So therefore, I look forward for that. And so till then, I wish all of you a good evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Your Holiness. Thank you very much. I'm sure we learned a lot, and I'm sure we can all stay overnight. But I think we all need to rest. because tomorrow is going to be another exciting day. Thank you, Rinpoche. Thank you, Holiness.
Thank you. Sonam di tamje zeba nye tomne nye ben danam pamje ne jega nanche balam trup zeben sole dowa sho. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Please rise. Put your hand together.